Hey, this is Erica from Ever Educating, and this channel is teaching tips, tools, ideas, and resources for new college instructors. And today's video is another video request. I received a question in the form that I'll link below about asynchronous teaching. My last video was also about asynchronous teaching, so like that one below too. But today it's about, ideas for engaging students in your async course. Because this person said, while teaching asynchronously, I have been asked to keep student engagement high by using discussion questions. But I feel that might not be enough, might not be the best approach. Do you have any other ideas? Right? And so, excellent question. And I do think that, let's start with discussions, right? Because I do think discussion questions can be helpful for engagement in async courses, but it's going to really depend on the design of them, right? And I have a video about designing discussion forums that I'll link below. But you want to think that often the way that you approach this in an async course is you have a discussion forum, you have a prompt, and then you say, hey, in 200 words, answer this prompt, and then reply to two peers' responses, right? That's a usual setup. And that can be a bit boring sometimes, right? If the prompt isn't really engaging enough, it can have some issues, especially if you're doing it every single week in your async course. And so one potential solution to this, not being very engaging problem is changing up how they respond to the discussion question, right? Because you might have, okay, in this one, here's a prompt, write this many words in response. But you might have, okay, next week, here's a prompt. I want you to record a 1-minute video answering it, right? And then when you respond to each other, you respond via text or you respond via video, whatever the case may be, right? And then you have a different discussion prompt. Like, okay, this time I want you to go out and I want you to interview somebody, asking them about this concept from this week, right? I want you to have a discussion with somebody about this. And I want you to bring back your findings. So this might be recording the conversation, in which case you want to make sure they have a form that they have the person sign saying it's okay to, submit this video. Or it can just be, I want you to go do this and I want you to write up what happened, right? A report, and that's what you're posting. And then we're going to discuss, the situation here, right? It's what they had to say about this concept and then reflect on it. Did you agree? Did you disagree? What did you find intriguing, right? So involving others outside of the classroom. And again, you can kind of brainstorm. What are other ways that you can make these discussion prompts more interesting? Rather than just having text, you have video, right? Maybe you ask them, hey, here's this prompt. I want you to create an infographic or some kind of image in response to it, right? And then so on and so forth, right? Asking other people, whatever the case may be. So that can be a way that discussions can become more interactive for students rather than the same, write 200 words, write 200 words, write 200 words, and then reply to your classmates, okay? So that's one approach. Now, I agree, though, that having a discussion every week might not be the best. It might be helpful to create a variety of small activities in your async course so that students don't get bored of the same thing over and over, right? So rather than just having variety in how they answer the discussion prompt, you have a variety of what the small activity of each week is. So maybe every 3 weeks it's a discussion prompt, but then in between, right? So week 1 and week 4 are discussion prompts and so on and so forth. But then week 2 and week 5 and so on is a different small activity, okay? And so it really depends on what you're teaching, what the small activity will be. Because it might be, if you're teaching a course that's very much like learn these concepts, not so much practical application or skills, it's just learn meanings, right? Definitions, concepts, that kind of thing. That it might be, okay, in this small activity, here's this concept. I want you to create a short lesson, right? Imagine that you are teaching freshmen about this concept and they're let's say seniors, right? Create a little lesson plan and that's what you're posting for this week's activity, right? Or it might be create that lesson, right? So you're gonna have, here's your concept of the week. I want you to create a 5-minute video lecture about this concept whether you're teaching 2 freshmen. Or I want you to create a document, right? A guide for how to understand this concept. And it should be 2 to 3 pages, okay? So that's another way of creating more engagement. It's by differentiating the type of activities students do rather than constantly asking them to just do discussion prompts, okay? And so you can decide if the small activity is just being submitted to you or if it's being shared with their peers, and then there's, responses to them, right? Because you might create a discussion forum, but it's not a discussion prompt. It's post your 5-minute lecture, right? And then give feedback on 2 of your classmates on A, what went really well, what they did really well when they were creating their lecture, and B, areas of improvement, right? What tweaks could they make to make it even stronger, okay? So in that way you have, the community building aspect, because they are seeing each other's work. But again, it's not just, hey, what are your thoughts on this? And do you agree or disagree, right? It's something a bit different. So that's another approach, right? So it's having that small activity that's different from just a discussion. Now, speaking of video lectures, you might also decide to make your own video lectures, right, for a given week. So maybe, let's say now we're in week 3, right? So week 1, 4, etc., were discussions. Weeks 2, 5, etc., were small activities. Maybe week 3, 6, etc., are this week, I'm gonna be posting my own video lectures, and your interaction is to respond to me, right? So I'm gonna post this video in the discussion forum, right? I want you to watch it, and then underneath, I want you to reply and tell me what's the most important thing you feel you learned from this video. What do you wanna know more about after I finish this video? What did you not understand that you feel like I need to provide more context or examples, right? So give them prompts where it's not about them speaking to each other, right? It's not a discussion forum. It's, I want you to respond to what I just taught you, right? I want you to engage with me as the instructor, but in a way where when they're replying in that discussion forum, activity, that they can see each other's responses, right? So they can always reply and say, hey, I agree with Sarah. I also was confused about X, right? Or, hey, Ryan said this about your point here. I thought you meant this. Could you clarify, right? And then you can respond to their replies, right? So it's a class conversation, but it's not that usual discussion forum. It's, hey, we're having a discussion about my own lecture that I posted for this week, okay? And maybe this is something you do every week. It doesn't have to be like a small activity the same way as discussion prompts and other things. But this is another way of potentially increasing engagement, right? The interactivity of your async course, right? So the videos themselves are pre-recorded. It's not synchronous, right? But it's, hey, I'm posting this on Monday. I want you to respond by Wednesday or Thursday so that I can reply to your responses by Sunday, right? So that can be a way of increasing interaction as well by having them interact more directly with you, but also with their peers if they reply to each other naturally in this conversation, okay? So that's a third approach for increasing interactivity with your students in an async course. So those are just 3 approaches. If you want more, you can let me know in the comments below. Subscribe if you don't want to miss out on future content. Click like if you found this useful. But I'm really glad I got these 2 questions recently in my form. So again, if you have any of your own questions, please do send them in, and I'll make sure to create more videos in the future like these. All right, so I'll see you next time.